The Death's Head rings. A silver skull grinned up from the ash. In August 1945, in the burned-out shell of Wewelsburg Castle, eyewitnesses say American soldiers sifted through cinders and found hundreds of silver Death's Head rings, the SS Totenkopfringe, each one engraved inside with a name, a date, and a facsimile of Heinrich Himmler's signature, plus the abbreviations SLB for Seinem Lieben, meaning his beloved. Some GIs pocketed them as souvenirs, and then the rest of the story goes dark. The ring was never an official award of the state. Instead, it was Himmler's personal gift, an order symbol meant to bind the SS elite for life. He said it should remind its bearer to be ready, quote, to sacrifice our own lives for the life of the whole. The band's design, oak leaves, a skull, sig runes, a swastika, the hoggle rune, came from the nightmare imagination of Maria Wiligut, a man once declared legally insane before becoming Himmler's chief advisor of the occult. He designed the ring. Munich's Gar jewelers cast it in silver. Wear it on the left ring finger only. Return it on leaving the SS, or in death. Wewelsburg, Himmler's ritual center in Westphalia, was to be the shrine. In 1938, he decreed that the rings of the dead would be brought back and stored in a chest beneath the castle for future generations. Then the orders grew stranger. In October 1944, Himmler halted new awards and changed the policy, perhaps foreseeing the Reich's collapse. Rings of the fallen would be preserved at Wewelsburg. Rings of those who, quote, departed by other means and dishonored the SS would be melted down. Soon after, according to legend, he commanded that the remaining rings, about 11,500, be sealed in a cavern with explosives inside a hill near Wewelsburg. By January 1945, amid the ruin of the Reich, official SS records counted roughly 14,500 rings made, 64% returned after the holders' deaths, 10% lost in battle, the rest kept or unaccounted for. On March 31, 1945, with U.S. troops 3 days away, SS men blew charges and set tank mines in the castle, torching the complex. So what happened to the rings? One answer lies in the rubble. Hundreds apparently carried off in duffel bags. Another may lie in a crucible. Police called for melting down many of the rest. A third answer lives in rumor. A secret chest still sealed in a Westphalian hillside. The Grail crystal. When American troops stormed the smoldering ruins of Wewelsburg Castle in April 1945, they found Nazi regalia, charred furnishings, and the strange architecture of a place never meant to be understood. But one object was missing, an object believed by some to have been placed at the heart of one of the castle's most secretive rooms. A glowing crystal, mounted like a relic, said to represent the Holy Grail. It was gone without a trace. In reality, the stone was likely a large piece of quartz. It was placed in the Grail room sometime after 1938, when a bitter design dispute broke out between the castle's first administrator, Manfred von Knobelsdorff, and architect Hermann Bartels. Knobelsdorff, a believer in esoteric Germanic myth, was angered by Bartels' decision to install a mere illuminated wreath in a room that was supposed to symbolize so much more. Quote, "Does Mr. Bartels even know what the Grail means for the German soul?" He fumed in his diary. "The jewel of Percival is the Grail, the stone of light." Knobelsdorff's definition of the Grail as a stone of light and the jewel of Percival specifically refers to the version described in Wolfram von Eschenbach's early 13th century epic poem, Parzival. In this influential German text, the Grail is not a chalice, but a miraculous stone that provides sustenance and eternal youth. It echoed the work of Otto Rahn, a medievalist turned SS man, whose book, Crusade Against the Grail, reimagined the Grail not as a cup, but as a relic of Cathar heretics in southern France, perhaps even a luminous crystal. Though Rahn never shaped the castle's design, his ideas bled into its mythology. After the war, those ideas grew. Popular writers seized on the castle's Arthurian rune names: King Arthur, Grail, Teutonic Knights, and the eerie architecture of the North Tower, with its 12 columns and sunwheel floor. In 1967, journalist Heinrich Himmler gave the myth a name, Himmler's Grail Castle. The phrase stuck. Historians, meanwhile, tried to set the record straight. Karl Hauser, the castle's most thorough chronicler, found no evidence of rituals. No round table, no sacred order of SS paladins. Just empty symbolism and unfinished rooms. Even the Grail crystal was little more than decor. The facts, like crystals, refract oddly through time. And still, the crystal remains missing. Whether it was lost in the post-war looting, spirited away by a fleeing officer, or tucked inside a forgotten box in some Cold War archive, no one knows. The Hexenkatothek. On a cold March morning in 1945, as the Soviet army closed in, a librarian stumbled into a room of horrors. Deep within the crumbling Haugwitz Castle in far eastern Germany, he discovered stacks of scorched books and files, documenting medieval interrogation methods in disturbing detail. At first glance, the librarian suspected these papers were instructions, manuals for torment, crafted by the SS for imminent use. But he had unearthed something even stranger. The remnants of Heinrich Himmler's secret passion project, a mission cryptically known as the Hexenkatothek, the Witch Card Index. A decade earlier, in 1935, Himmler had quietly assembled an elite SS unit known as the 8th Sonderauftrag, tasked with scouring archives across Germany and beyond, meticulously documenting every witch trial since the Middle Ages. Operating undercover, researchers disguised themselves as university students or genealogists. By 1944, they'd compiled 33,846 large-format index cards, a vast catalog spanning trials from Bavaria to India and even Mexico, recording names, dates, and interrogation details. Project directors had also proposed that the victim's supposed race be recorded, a data point determined perversely by their, quote, resistance to interrogation. What drove Himmler, the Reichsführer SS, to such obsession? One clue lies in his own ancestry. His researchers uncovered a woman named Margaret Himmler, killed as a witch in 1629. Himmler proudly embraced this lineage, imagining himself connected to an ancient Germanic faith, one violently suppressed, he claimed, by a conspiracy between Judaism, Catholicism, and the Bolsheviks. For Himmler, the witch trials were nothing less than a crusade against Germanic culture, a secret war waged by the Church against noble Aryan women he considered, quote, mothers of the nation. The Hexenkatothek was built to turn that myth into a weapon, an archive engineered to fuel a post-war anti-church propaganda campaign. Himmler's fixation went further. He even ordered his team to investigate a casual observation by Hermann Göring that ravens still gathered ominously at old sites where witches had been killed. Himmler envisioned detailed, interdisciplinary research into these places, convinced they held mystical significance. The results were disastrous. Despite years of exhaustive work and massive investment, the Hexenkatothek produced little usable propaganda. A planned film never materialized, and an attempt at a propaganda novel trilogy was scrapped by Himmler himself, who demanded shorter, easily digestible books of witch stories for soldiers and civilian consumption. The project's only tangible legacy was a sprawling, chaotic archive, scattered and partially destroyed at war's end, with documents spirited away by Soviet, Polish, and East German intelligence. The Hexenkatothek remains, at once both bureaucratic and chilling, a library of witches, conjured not from spellbooks, but from the fevered imagination of a man who tried to make myth into policy, and who believed that the ghosts of the past could fight his war in the present. Runes in the Black Sun. Hidden in the heart of a medieval castle, 12 black runes form a sun that never sets. Visitors to Wewelsburg, Heinrich Himmler's so-called center of the world, still paws at that mosaic, known today as the Black Sun, and wonder, where did these strange symbols come from? The answer lies not in ancient Germanic tribes, but in the mind of one man, Maria Wiligut, an occultist who claimed to remember 228,000 years of human history. Known as Himmler's Rasputin, he rose to the rank of SS Brigadeführer after having been dragged from a cafe in a straitjacket and declared insane less than a decade earlier. Born in Vienna in 1866, Wiligut followed his family's military tradition, serving as a decorated officer in the Austro-Hungarian army. But behind the medals was a man haunted by visions. Visions he claimed inherited from a line of ancient god kings, the Asa Uwana-Zippe, stretching back to the age of giants and 3 sons. By the 1920s, he'd fallen into obsession. Wiligut believed himself to be the secret king of Germany, persecuted for his ancestral wisdom. He was involuntarily committed to a mental asylum after threatening his wife and declaring that the Bible was originally written in Germanic runes. Diagnosed with schizophrenia, he spent years behind padded doors. And yet, within a decade, he was handpicked by Heinrich Himmler to join the SS, not in secret, but in uniform, under the pseudonym Karl Maria Weistor. Wiligut's beliefs were systematized into a theory of the universe he called Urbanism. It was a Christianity with a K, rooted in a lost Germanic god named Christ, not Christ. The Norse myths celebrated by rival mystics, he warned, were false idols. In Wiligut's vision, the true German past was hidden, persecuted, and waiting to be revived. His runes were the key. Unlike Elder Futhark, a real runic alphabet used by early Germanic tribes, Wiligut's rune row was a cosmic map. 24 signs representing not letters, but forces. The man rune symbolized spirit bound to matter. Fa kindled the fire of creation. His Drehauge, or rotating eye, was a model of intersecting planes of spirit and matter, where the universe itself awakened. The runes were used to document sacred verses that he called the Halgerita Sprüche. One spoke of, quote, 2 suns alike to the hourglass, suggesting an ancient cosmic duel, a myth he claimed to recall from a vanished epoch. Himmler, captivated by Wiligut's arcane knowledge, commissioned him to transform Wewelsburg Castle into the ceremonial center of a mythic SS order. There, Wiligut led name-giving rites, devised marriage rituals, and designed the infamous Totenkopfringe, the death's head ring infused with runes of power and ideology. In 1938, the king of the SS's own secret finally caught up to him. SS officials uncovered his asylum records, and the man once hailed as a prophet of the ancient Germanic race was quietly retired. He died in obscurity in 1946, his gravestone inscribed with the words, "Our life passes away like idle chatter," but the chatter of his runes has never quite faded. Cauldron. It was buried just beneath the muck, 24 pounds of gold, sculpted into a vessel straight out of myth. When divers pulled the Cauldron from the bottom of a Bavarian lake in 2001, they uncovered a mystery woven through centuries, bound with Nazi secrets, occult ambition, and an alleged connection to the Holy Grail. The cauldron gleamed like something out of a dream. 18-karat gold, nearly identical in shape and imagery to the ancient silver Gundestrup cauldron found in a Danish bog in 1891. Horned deities, sacred animals, and Celtic symbols covered its sides, an apparent relic of a lost Iron Age civilization. But then came an extraordinary claim. What if it was actually forged by the Nazis? Professor Ludwig Bamser of the Bavarian State Archaeological Collection stunned colleagues when he suggested just that in 2002. After 6 weeks of study, he announced the cauldron wasn't ancient at all, but modern, possibly forged under Hitler's regime for occult ceremonies at an elite Nazi school planned near the lake. Others pointed to SS leader Heinrich Himmler's obsession with the Holy Grail and the occult. Could this be the result of those fevered dreams? More clues emerged. A Munich jeweler later reported that his predecessor crafted such a cauldron between 1925 and 1939 for a chemical company in Munich, then led by Albert Peach, a Nazi insider with direct ties to Hitler. Nazi documents from 1945, discovered hidden in an attic among Himmler's belongings, also referenced a Celtic gold cauldron and even mentioned Otto Gar, jeweler to the Nazi elite. Newspapers were quick to dub the artifact the Nazi Holy Grail, and even Hitler's bedpan. But further analysis complicated the claims of a Nazi origin. Metallurgical tests found the gold alloy matched not dental gold from concentration camps, as some feared, but ancient Cornish gold and silver, low in modern industrial contaminants. Could the cauldron actually be pre-Roman? Scholar Garrett Olmsted argues it might date back to 60 BCE, its iconography matching Gaulish coin art and Celtic myth cycles, later echoed in medieval tales like Sir Gawain and the Green Knight. The possibility continues to fuel speculation about lost hoards of gold looted by the Nazis. In the decades since its discovery, the cauldron has passed through a haze of fraud trials, secret sales, and billion-dollar valuations. Today, it sits in a vault, its story unresolved, a 20th century Nazi showpiece to some, a pre-Roman Celtic masterpiece to others. Which of these artifacts remains the creepiest today? Let me know in the comments. As always, thank you for watching Dark 5. Like and subscribe to continue exploring the greatest mysteries of this world and beyond.